Welcome to Darkly Lit, where we hop onto the eerie train that should not exist. I am your host, Kayla King. I'm joined by our other host, Sade.
Hello. I think I missed my train.
And our other host, David King.
Yeah, girl, I hear you.
This is a very train-themed episode.
Instead of the darkly lit theme for this episode, Thomas the Tank Engine.
I mean, there's some really creepy Thomas the Tank Engine stuff
Yeah.
out there.
There sure is.
I mean, there's a famous Skyrim mod where you can make the dragons Thomas the Tank Engine. It's hilarious, but still. It's amazing when you're playing the game and you hear a train whistle and you're like, oh fuck, it's a dragon! Oh fuck! We just read The U Train by N.K. Jemisin, which is a short story that was published in an issue of Strange Horizons on December 3rd, 2007, and received an honorable mention in the year's Best Fantasy and Horror 21st collection. We wanted to choose a short story this time because life is busy and we're still stuck in quarantine. And when
life is busy, even though it's also kind of ground to an absolute halt for some of us. So it's a weird place to be right now. So
yeah, I'll just agree.
Yeah. But this story was more readily available, and I think it's nice to be able to read something quick. And surprisingly, there's a lot more depth than I thought there would be, despite what's happening. Shall I give the summary?
Go for it.
Awesome. Yeah. So we don't know the name of our protagonist, but we know that the whole story is from her point of view as she's talking on a phone. She lives in New York, and she's talking to her best friend in these conversations, and a lot of them is just her troubles living in New York City, and she's noticing something weird when she waits for the train, or basically the subway or metro, and she's noticing trains that should not exist appearing, and starts to seem curious about it, and it's you could tell it's starting to scare her friend. And then in the end, you realize she does hop on the train, and it seems like she's happy that she's done it, but something is still a little off, even when she has hopped on one of the supposedly defunct trains. So, again, short story, but I think I guess what did you guys think of this?
It was a lot shorter than I realized it would be. And I felt this wasn't so much horror as it was maybe a little bit of like a little surreal. Mm-hmm. So I think if I'd read it prior, I wouldn't have thought this would be a good pick, but it is a good short story, and I do like what it is.
Absolutely.
It's kind of more of it almost has like a strange fiction vibe to it rather than like a horror, or it's strange or weird fiction. But there is something a little bit uncanny. I mean, the uncanny is definitely the word I'd put, and but it's more like an urban fantasy in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the eeriness comes from, I guess, how the character starts to seem a little unhinged. Just not even like fully. I was expecting for her to go fully unhinged, but she never does. But there is it always is that sort of. She clearly believes that these trains are like that they shouldn't exist, but they do.
She explains them as like ghost trains without actually calling them ghost trains.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're like I like the way that she describes it. Also, it's almost like these trains are still here. Have you ever wondered, like maybe these trains never really shut down to some degree? They just kind of exist when people need them to exist. And I think that's the kind of eerie part of it, is the idea that there's so many changed plans and patterns and platforms and things in the city that over time you lose track of, trains that exist or don't exist, and maybe a few strays still lurk out there.
There was a point where she describes them of like how you look down the tunnel and you would think you see the trains in there like curled up or something, like they're living things.
Yeah, like she says, if you look down the tunnels, you can see some of them pass by, like as almost like they're burrowing in the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Which that is an actually interesting way to look at it. She actually does describe them as almost seeming alive. Like there's a point where at the end the U train starts to pop its head out, and she's like, "Well, come on then," and then it moves again. She addresses them like they're real, when it in itself is a little unhinged. Now,
well, you use unhinged. I don't
want to, maybe not unhinged, but it's just
well, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to interpret because it's like there's like a sort of like, on top of this, we've also got her talking to her friend kind of about her insecurities in general.
And something to point out is that we never, all of the conversation that we're listening in on is what she says. We don't hear the other half of the conversation of what her friend is saying to her.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We can guess or assume based off how she responds.
But this is a classic situation of unreliable narrator to an amazing degree, because we only have this woman's dialogue, only her dialogue, and in a one-sided conversation, to which we are not privy to the other half.
Now, all of us, if I recall, all of us have taken public transportation at some point or another, or have used it quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
Like for the longest time, I would take the metro in downtown LA.
Same.
And for years, God, probably like
Portland has Oregon has the TriMet system, and so when I was going to school in Portland, I would ride the Max train in and out of Portland all the time.
Mm-hmm. And some of this does feel I felt this like her waiting for trains, and then the fact that some people would say, "Oh, take the 1-9," and I'm like, "Yeah, that sounds familiar." Along with the fact like you're kind of just waiting there. The one thing I wish that could have been addressed more, because public transportation is like scary in its own right for different reasons. Like the weirdest stuff usually happens when you're riding on it. Even
oh my god.
But I feel like one of the eeriest parts of it was honestly when she was describing the strangers that she encountered in the first place. There was a homeless man yelling, and there was a weird severe lady. Like, I've had so many bizarre encounters on trains, some that were a little scary. So I understand.
I feel like maybe because that's especially prominent in Portland, that was like that was the most normal part of the story.
Yeah, I didn't see the homeless people as that different or that unusual. I think the ones that I usually had the trouble with is random strangers sitting next to me and then like questioning me about like weird stuff. Like I've mentioned this before, like the one guy who is like, "Hey, you have nice shoes. Thanks. I'm reading a book with earbuds in. You want to know how I know? Let me tell you about shoes," and just goes on this whole thing about shoes. And is like, "Do you know why I know so much about shoes?" And I said point blank, I'm like, "I really don't care." And you kind of have to. It's kind of like another guy approached me and said, on a bus, like a train stop, and said, "You're coming with me. We're grabbing lunch together." Out of the blue. And I said, "No, I don't want to." He's like, "No, you're coming with me now." And I said, "No." And luckily we were in public and there was all these people around. So I wasn't as afraid. And it's like, "I just want to go home, please." And then he finally did leave, but it's just, it gets scary. I think the scariest thing that did happen to me on a bus is a man who, he was not mentally well, came in only wearing underwear, screaming, holding what looked like a bag of shit in the back of the bus. And the bus actually stopped and everyone moved to the front and police officers came in and arrested him.
Jeez.
Yeah. Just crazy stuff happens on public transportation.
So the fact that the story wasn't about that and was about, these weird trains was kind of nice.
Mm-hmm. She could have gone the easier route, but
yeah.
Can I ask what's some crazy stuff you've seen on public transportation?
One's off the top of my head that I can remember. There was it's on the back of, it wasn't the train, but it's still the same transit system. On the back of the bus, there was this drunk woman who kept going on about stuff, and then this young man and I think his younger sister came in and sat near the back, almost next to me, and then the woman started yelling at them. No, first she was harassing the little girl sitting in front of her, and literally me and this guy with his sister were about to start to leave the girl alone. And I went over and I told the lady to move with her daughters while the guy spoke to the woman, and then so the woman started yelling at him, accusing him of being a pedophile and that his little sister was his girlfriend.
Whoa.
And eventually the bus pulled over and we all got off the bus except for her, because the cops came and arrested her, and she was passed out by the time the cops got there. But yeah, she was either drunk or on something.
Mm-hmm.
Portland has, not that long ago there was a stabbing. This racist man was yelling at these two girls, and 2 people stepped in. I think actually 3 people stepped in, and 2 of them got stabbed, and there was some death. And one time I got on and all I did was glance at this man and his box of banana bread, and I ate banana bread from a stranger.
Oh no. Were you okay?
I was fine.
Okay.
It's not always so bad. Sometimes there's nice people who offer you banana bread. It was packaged.
Mm-hmm. Was banana bread any good?
Yeah, it was a sealed store-bought package. It just was nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, the nicest thing I've seen on a bus was this couple. Basically, they were sitting down and they actually just chatted with me and my sister. They're like, "Yeah, we're from out of town. We've never been to LA before. This is awesome." And this girl comes on the train, and she's young. She's in tears, holding a bag, and they're like, "Why are you okay, hon? Do you need any help?" And they were very sweet to her, and she's just shaking her, and they're like, it's like, and they said, "Do you need anything?" And they said, "Look, whatever the issue is, you don't, running away is not always the answer." And they offered her money. It's like, just you could tell they were not from the city. Like they even admitted they were from a small town in the South, but they said, like, "If you need anything, here's our phone number. You feel free to call us or anything." And they were just genuinely trying to be sweet, and she's just staying quiet. But eventually both of them hopped off the bus. But the fact that they actually showed, the fact that they really cared and were concerned for her well-being is it's nice to see human decency in that way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I could only imagine how insane it would be in New York.
I've still never been to New York, so I wouldn't know. But it's easy enough to picture. You definitely get a sense of the space, even just from the conversation.
Mm-hmm. We're talking about our own experiences on public transit, on trains, but those all stand out to us because of the people we experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about this story is not that. It's the fact that there was no one else when, yeah, there was a homeless man sleeping on the other platform, but that's not the story. It's empty trains waiting for that lone passenger that needs them, because there was a point in the story where she describes how this train had rolled up and it sat there while she was alone on the platform, but as soon as someone else walked up onto the platform, the train left.
Yeah.
And have you guys ever ridden a train and being the only passenger inside?
It's felt that way, late at night.
I have before, yeah.
I have actually early morning, because every time I fly out to see you guys, I try to catch a flight that it's at 6-7 a.m. So I'm on the max train at 4 or 5 a.m. and it's There's a few people, but like
Mhm.
it's kind of an eerie, but like very like I love being on the train. I love trains, so
I always enjoy taking the metro. I used to like taking public transport, and even when things are weird, most of the time it was always like relatively like cool being like this is look at this thing go, look how far it travels and how much ground I can cover with for like a couple bucks, like
I really want to take a train cross country to like Chicago.
That'd be so cool. I would love to be on a like overnight train, like one of those like sleepaway car trains.
That
And
would be
I know
cool.
it costs a lot of money, but
Yeah.
It costs less than you think it would.
oh really? I didn't.
Yeah.
I always assumed it would cost more. I guess the reason we're kind of discussing this now is because
Because we can't escape. We're trapped like rats.
trapped like this protagonist.
Yeah, I wanted to say earlier, like again, I kind of addressing that point though. I think one of the things that kind of gets pointed out in the story is that she's not necessarily from, or she wasn't always from New York. Like she starts having her doubts about the city, or at least not from New York City itself. Like she talks to the other person about her friend about how maybe I'm just not cut out for the city, maybe, and like all these doubts like start kind of popping up as the story progresses. So like I get it. She's trying to adjust to things, and sort of in the process of that she's accidentally discovering these weird things about these phantom trains, like but I wouldn't say that like she's I think as it's interesting because as her kind of she describes her insecurities, little things that are bothering her mounting, that's when it becomes more and more apparent that the trains are like reaching out to her almost.
Mm-hmm. I feel like
I feel like there's a lot of ways you can interpret this, and that's what I like about it.
Okay,
it's very open to interpretation.
This is going to sound weird, but go with me with this. It kind of reminds me of Paranoia Agent, and I know it's a weird connection, but go with me. So the premise or the idea behind Paranoia Agent is this woman is just so stressed out and kind of conjures something to get her to escape this stress, even though it is in a violent manner.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like she is in a state where she is extremely stressed. Like, I mean, the one thing that our protagonist says is, I hate my job. People treat me like shit. And she's not sure if she feels it fits in with the city. And
she broke up with her boyfriend.
Yeah. And even though he was a dick and she said she would have killed him if she would have married him, she still wonders if she should have stayed.
Because she feels like she can't find happiness otherwise.
Mm-hmm. And and
then she even starts doubting she starts acting like, do you like me? Like, you tell me if you didn't like me, right? Or if I was bothering you, right?
Yeah, to her friend.
And so, yeah, you see that kind of, that like insecurity kind of mounting as things go on. But to furthering your own point.
But I feel like maybe from her stress, she just, after a certain point, she starts, and she does mention this, like, after a certain point, you start to manifest this train. Like, people keep saying, you keep waiting for the specific train to arrive, because you keep thinking, oh, it's the 1 or the 9. And you think, okay, I'm waiting for the 9. The 9 has to come. And it's really the wrong one. But you maybe, as she words it, like, I want it so bad. You start to want it so badly that it eventually just does appear.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe in this sort of state, it's like maybe she wanted this so badly, just an escape from her life, that she kind of wanted it to appear, the train to appear. That's one thought I have. That's a theory I have.
The train is there for you, hence the title YOU train for the story.
At least that's my theory. If you guys have any others.
No, I think that's actually a pretty interesting way to look at it. I'm kind of on the same page for the most part.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very relatable perspective that we're reading. Everyone has that sense of like, oh, this one person embarrassed me at work, or oh, I'm over my ex, but like, what if, you know, I fucked up and that was my one chance? Or what if I'm not going to find anyone else? Or shit, am I complaining too much to my friends? Are they getting annoyed by me? Everyone has those thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And so everyone starts to like, you want something to take you maybe not so much away from your life, but away from those insecurities. And so you, because I don't feel like she so much got away. She didn't really escape because she's still there. She's still at the, she still calls her friend at the end, but she says, I'm fine now. I'm doing much better. It was more so.
She just rode the train to the end of the line and somehow it helped.
Yeah.
But what does that mean? What is the end? She talked about the cell phone reception being a little iffy where she was.
Yeah. It's on one level of like, okay, she found something in these trains that brought her either some form of peace or some form of confidence, or really, I think more like a some form of understanding that there's, you know, some weird understanding. I'm sure there's like some analogy I could make with like train systems or whatnot, but I'm too tired. But like, because she comes back and she starts talking to her friend like, hey, instead of talking about herself, she starts talking about her friend like, hey, I know you feel this way about having kids too soon and giving up these goals, and you know, she's changed. But then there's also that weirdness of like, well, she's still on the platform, it sounds like. Did she ever really leave? Is she in some ascended space of thought? I don't know.
It's possible. I mean, again, the ending is up for interpretation. The way I saw it was that she's still at the end of the line, wherever she was when she rode that train, and we don't know where that is.
I just had a thought. You know that saying where it's like, it's about the journey, not the destination? Like, maybe that's it. It's like, yeah, okay, I got a lot of insecurities, but like, life's a journey. And so as long as I'm always progressing forward, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to take away from it. Like, I need that right now.
No, for sure.
Actually, you mentioned something like, and I think you may have touched upon something. You mentioned how at the end of the conversation she starts to address her friend and talk about her friend's issues, and realizing that before all this she just kind of talks about herself.
That's true.
It's all about, here's my life, here's what's going on in my life. Thank you for being, I'm glad you're in my life. I don't know what I would do without with you. I need you. It's about her, the protagonist, and it is until the end, after she hops this train, that, and finally she's like, you know what, I've been selfish. I should have realized that you're dealing with a lot of shit right now as well, but I just assumed not. And when you do have, and I think that's also another thing, the you train, like,
yeah, the you.
But yeah, I think that could also be something for interpretation as well. Like, that, and I mean, look at how she addresses the trains too. Like, they are checking her out. She's the one who's special. They only appear for her and no one else.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point. It's like, I almost feel like she's got this mindset. If you just call to them, they'll come for you. That kind of thing. This is a fun one. I like talking about this one.
There's a lot to speculate.
Yeah. Did we get any questions for this one?
We actually received quite a bit.
Hopefully ones we haven't already addressed. Or if we have, we can just
yeah, we can always reinterpret it. So Fatal Neon asked a question and then gave their experience. Thank you, Fatal Neon. The character on the other end of the phone gets some sparse but significant characterization. Why does Jemisin choose this character to play opposite the narrator? As well, they said, this story also reminded me of a phenomenon I experience sometimes on the Chicago L. I'll use my phone to check when the next train is arriving and watch it go from 5 minutes away to 2 minutes away to due, but the train has just never shows up. And it feels like you just missed it or blink and it was gone or something. Ghost trains.
Ghost trains.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, especially people who have lived in the city and taken public transportation, can relate to bits and pieces of that story. Especially, people who moved to the city and are getting their start and feel out
I
of
think
place.
if you're in an environment or you're living in an area where you are constantly taking public transit, like the train system, then you're likely living a much quicker and busier lifestyle. Um, where I think you are being faced every day with like different insecurities. So there's a lot of like relatable. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with that thought.
No,
But
I
back to the question of the friend's character. Okay, I can kind of take what I just said and compare. They're two contrasting characters in the lifestyles that they're living. This girl who's left her hometown or whatever to the city is now facing the insecurities of this busy city life. Whereas the friend on the phone, we could assume that maybe they live back in the hometown or wherever, because they seem to have a much more settled and grounded life in that they're married, they have kids.
I don't think they're from, unless they moved there, because remember she made a slide against, it's like it's probably from some place to sketch like Queens, and then there's like a pause and she says, yes, I know you're from there. So her friend is from Queens, which is,
but she's still living a much more settled life in that she's probably home with the kids more. And
yeah,
like I know she has sons, or she has a son or a baby son.
I think on building off of what you're saying there too, I think it's the contrast. Since we're only getting our protagonist's perspective, to her friend seems like she has her life so well put together. She's married, she has kids, she's settled, she's got everything kind of where she needs it, which looks ideal when you're living by yourself in a big city. Everything's fast paced and everything looks bad. She's comparing herself to her friend over time, kind of.
Or at least it seems that way until we get to the end of the story.
Yes, because once we get to the end, she realizes, no, I can see outside my perspective, and I understand that you've got stuff you're going through too. It's not. It's like it's like she has a better understanding of her friend and the things that her friend might be dealing with, and doesn't see her as that idealized, like, why can't I have this? Why can't I be this? That kind of thing.
So it's like until you can see past yourself, you'll realize that other people are also equally struggling.
Yes. Everybody struggles in their own way. Yeah. So I think in that weird way, I think it gives her, I think it feels like it gives our main character some solace in a weird way, like understanding that they're both dealing with stuff and that she shouldn't heap all this stuff on her because her friend's life is far from perfect in its own way.
And then this is also very realistic too, because it one of the things that Leon says, why does Jemisin chose this character to play opposite the narrator, and
that's
basically
opposite.
Yeah, they're clearly the same age, but or close to the same age.
They're peers at least.
Yeah, they probably were at the same level at one point, but then just chose two different paths. One got married and had kids and is now settled down, while our protagonist or narrator is now living in the city, focusing on her career. It's kind of the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, it's like, well, my life could be better if I was married and had kids and deal with that. But then it's like, well, I had to give up my career to have a family. So that they really are, despite like being friends and clearly seemingly having a repertoire, at least based off the way they joke off. Like she says, "You're awesome, huh? I'm glad I have you in my life." It sounds like the narrator definitely seems appreciative of her friend for the most part.
Yes.
Or at least is definitely grateful to have her. I mean, that's why I think it's a good opposite situation.
Oh, yeah.
So now Neruli, hi Neruli, asks, what do you think of the format? Did you feel it aided or maybe hindered parts of the story? It is an interesting format because it is all first person point of view, someone talking on a phone, but we don't hear the other person's.
I liked it. I think it aided. I think it gave the story I like when a story will commit to a format that's a little bit more unusual and it knows how to do it.
The focus of the story is this character's perspective and like the shift in their perspective at the end. And so like the format focuses solely on that. So I think it's perfect.
By having it in this format, it does open it up to so much interpretation. And like, why are we focusing on this narrator in specifically? Why not her friend? Like, and that would actually be interesting too. What if we heard the conversation from her friend is like basically her friend saying like, wait, what do you mean trains? That's so weird. Wait.
Well, I think again, some of the charm of a lot of the charm of the story is the fact that it is only one-sided. We only get, and again, I think it reinforces the idea of the you in the U train.
Mm-hmm.
We only get this person. It is all about her, you know? So
another question that Neruli asks is, what is your interpretation of the story, the message it's sending to you? Which I know we all kind of gave different ideas, but I guess
I think when Sade, when you said the grass is you said sorry,
the grass is greener.
Kayla, when you said the grass is always greener, I think that was the
intention.
I think it's that, but it's a little more nuanced than that, you know?
But then what about the trains? I'm trying to figure out
the trains add a fun the trains are the fun kind of mystical element to that. I think it's a, you know, it's a mash. It feels like a mashup to me of two different ideas, but then again, you know, it could be that the trains, it's that idea, you know, again, the ghost trains thing being like, you know, when you're waiting on a platform, waiting for a train, all you can think about is, oh, why isn't it here? Everything's, you know, and you start dwelling on that. You ever, you know, think about that? Like everybody else is doing this other thing. And meanwhile, I'm here stuck waiting for this train. There's a lot of that sort of grass is always greener kind of thought.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
That comes with that. So
yeah, the like, okay, my friend is at this place. When am I going to get on that train?
Yeah.
And catch up to them.
Yeah. So it's like the added frustration of trains that, like, you know, when you're waiting for a train to arrive and all you can think about is waiting for it to be here, waiting for it to be here. Where is it? Why isn't it here yet? What about me? What about me?
Okay. And then what about, although the ghost trains, which is, I mean, that's an eerie quality to it too. The, like, again, defunct trains that suddenly appear and they're encouraging her to hop on. And even then we don't know what exactly happened to her. And we don't, I mean, she seems to have changed positively, but we don't know if what happened to her is a good thing or a bad thing. And I don't know, I think the eeriness of this, again, I agree with Sade, it's not, doesn't feel like a horror story.
You're making the assumption that something happened to her. Maybe she just got on this train and she got where she just needed to be. And it was just the fact that she took that gamble of she decided like, well, to hell with it, I'm going to get on this train, see what happens. Maybe it was just that act alone that changed her perspective.
That's true. But either way, metaphorically, it got her where she needed to be in terms of her relationship with her friend.
That is possible. It's interesting because this is like when I looked it up, this was considered a horror, which it doesn't feel like a horror to me.
Yeah, I wouldn't call this horror at all. If we maybe should have looked up Jemisin's profile first, because they are considered a science fiction and fantasy writer.
I have looked up her work. She has some interesting ones, and yes, her focus tends to be science fiction and fantasy, but she has said that she writes horror, and the problem is I haven't really. I kind of have to go off the word of what's like reviewers say.
What's recommended to us, yeah.
Yeah, so, and sometimes they'll say like, yeah, this is totally a horror, and then you'll read it and you're like, I guess sort of, if you think of it in one way.
You could interpret it that way.
But
you could.
Yeah, but it doesn't, in all honesty, I don't think it is. And that's always the tricky part, because it's like we're trying to.
Maybe people are interpreting as the train literally took her to the other side, wherever the phantom trains are, and when that call is the last call that she can make, because she's found some ethereal place where she does have happiness. I don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know what's at the end of the line.
The story is open enough that you can interpret it any way you want to. So if you want to say it's horror because it just creeped you out and you have this conclusion, then that's fine.
Again, ghost trains are an eerie thought. The idea of these like trains that should have people on them, even conductors. But
every time you guys say ghost train, I think of that one episode of Hey Arnold.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, the one about the one about the one about the ghost train.
Yeah.
Wait, why do I not remember this episode?
There's really.
I don't think
we should look it up.
Okay,
we'll look it up.
You guys have Hulu, right?
Yeah, we have Hulu.
Yeah, Hey Arnold's on there now.
Oh, sweet. There we go.
Well, there has a song even. Been waiting for the haunted train.
It's a good episode. It's one of the more memorable episodes for me.
Yeah, for me too. Like compared to some of the other ones, even like they've done a couple that were urban legends, but I liked that one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe because I watched a lot of Hey Arnold episodes. I'm shocked that
it's like that one episode you missed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I whenever we mention ghost trains, the first thing that goes in my head is 2D going ghost train.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, the only thing because there's a moment where one part where she says, "Oh, it's another gray day," which could be interpreted as depression.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I get that. But at the same time, that could be just days where it's just like you just feel sad, or if for her it could just be you feel sad. And I don't know if like this could, again, it could be interpreted like maybe no that's, I think that's a little too
well. I guess if you really wanted to stretch, you could be like, is she dead by the end of it? Is that kind of what you're going for because of the proximity of trains to train to platform? And yeah.
I mean, again, it's you interpret it however you want it to be. If you want her to say she died at the end, then she died.
But I don't think that's what happened necessarily. But then again, that's the fun about stories like this. This story to me feels like the story that your professor pulls out for you in a English studies course and says, let's talk about reader response theory. Let's talk about author intention theory. And it's just like, that was the worst English class I ever took, you guys. Just pointing it out, just being honest. And yet here I am with these two doing this exact sort of thing in podcast form. And I'm enjoying it now because I'm not being tested on this. I don't have to write essays about, I have to break the story down into this theory and this theory and this theory. So yeah, I had to do a lot of that in college. And I took something away from it. So even if that degree never gets me anything, at least let me do this dumb podcast with my friends. That's my rant for the day. Should we move on to the next question?
Yes. So Fi Kicks Red Wolf, hi Fi Kicks. I'm interested to hear how you feel about the pace of the story, and if you feel if it was above or below the line to keep you invested. Insert fishing metaphor here.
Oh God. Well, there were no hills like white elephants, so.
I mean, I think the pacing is really good.
I think so. I think it's just as long as it needs to be for what kind of story it is.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah.
Sorry, Fikix, but yeah, you said fishing metaphor, and I immediately flashed back to reading Hemingway. So.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Does it? Okay. Is it kind of have that hills like white elephants thing where like, or no?
No, because that was there's definitely more to the story, but it's not like trying to be so. It's not trying to be like so like, ooh, look at me, I'm Ernest Hemingway and I'm writing about two people. There was a train involved in Hills like White Elephants, though. Two people waiting at a train station. So,
jeez,
Jig, it's really a very simple operation.
Oh my God. If I have to read that story again, I'm going to.
The bane of all English majors. Anyway.
No, you ask an English major, hey, what story is the bane of your existence? Everyone will say the hills like white elephants. God, that fucking story. Final person to ask questions is Dovey Does. Hi, Dovey. I was wondering about the setting, too. Does it feel very specific to a place like New York City, or does it vibe well with any major city you've been to or lived in? I think this could be set in
somewhere with a lot of public transportation, though. I feel like it has to be dense. Like to me, I mean, we were all able to relate stories about public transportation and how we felt about it. We've all had experiences that are similar, but this does feel uniquely like New York City to me. Well, because of just, you know, the way that trains are described, the locations, the jam-packedness of everything. It feels very, very NYC.
Now I know for a fact that Jemisin actually lives in Brooklyn, New York right now. So she definitely knows New York very well, and that's probably why she chose that setting.
Right.
But I feel like you could place this, like, if it was in LA or, well, okay, New York, out of any place in America, is extremely well known for their public transportation system. Like, they are known to have the best public transportation system in America.
Not a lot of places have as extensive a subway system in the US as New York. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
and which is, I've looked this up before. New York has the number one, and Los Angeles has the second. And I can assure you, more people drive in Los Angeles than they do take public transportation.
Yeah, when you hear about people taking trains, I feel like you tend to lean toward, like in your head, you tend to lean toward New York. Mm-hmm. So,
at least if you're talking about within the U.S., because there are cities outside of this country that you could probably place this story in if you changed some wording.
Oh yeah,
some names here and there.
You want to know something weird?
What?
The first time I ever was on a proper subway, like really genuinely on a proper subway, was actually in Sydney.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We had to take a train out from the airport in order to make our way into the Southern Highlands. But the train starts underground and at the, you know, near the airport in Sydney. Mm-hmm. So that was my first time, I think, boarding a train underground. Even I've never taken any of the metro lines here far enough to get to any of the underground stations in downtown LA.
Oh, I've been on them plenty of times. So
I never go down that far. Usually if I took the blue line, it would take me I would get off near the convention center for obvious reasons. But I never went as far into downtown where it went underground. Usually it was just before. So for me, it's weird to say that the first time I was ever on an underground rail was in Australia. So
I am tempted, by the way, to take you on the metro, and I will from the blue line to the red line. And the reason I say this is because the red line ends at where, actually, I would take Sade too. Sade would, both of you, because the end at one point in the red line, it ends at the edge of Universal Studios.
Oh yeah,
like you get out at one of the train stations and just go across, and there is it's not a bus,
it's
but
a tram.
It's a tram that takes you from the edge all the way up to Universal Studios.
Yeah, I've wanted to do that sometime. Actually, I do know about that one.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that goes underground, so you actually have to go underground and then leave and all that. Neat. So there's certain people, like when people visit, and they're like, oh yeah, should we take public transportation? I'm like, I have to estimate, like,
is it worth it?
Well, are you the type of person that can handle it? Like, there's like, I say this with because there are people I know that if they took it, they would be upset with me because they're like, why would you put me through this? This place is scary. Why would you do that to me?
Pros and cons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I know Sade would handle it just fine.
If you guys want to hear one more story of how Ravel ended up crying on the train.
Aww.
I won't tell it. Not maybe off the air.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a story you'd want to tell on the air with Ravel's consent. So
yeah. So another question that Dovey has is, would the text have benefited from seeing the other side of the conversation? I felt like it threw off the pace just a little bit, and the text was a bit too short in general. Also, would have benefited from a frame for why we're seeing these texts.
I kind of stated earlier, I disagree because I think it reinforces the idea narratively, the theme of the story that it's about our protag and only about our protag. It's the you train. So the fact that it's so focused on her and her conversation and we don't even get the other side is, besides being an artistic choice, is a thematic choice. Like I think it would have been a little awkward if we'd gotten both sides of that conversation. Other stories, it could work. I mean, remember when we were reading Let the Right One In, and there were whole sections that were just the conversations between Ile and
Hakan.
Yeah,
Hakan.
that's right.
Thank you. I was just gonna say, I was like, I know his name, and if I can't think of it, I'm just gonna be like the pedophile.
Listen to our other episodes to get an insight on that story. I'm gonna bring something up here too. Just my own question for this. So, NK Jemisin is also a black writer, and do you think this has any influence on her speech pattern or how someone would address her? Do you feel?
I feel like it's the dialogue strikes me as just being kind of like modern and true of someone like it has the isms of someone who is just talking to their friend in a especially like two close girlfriends, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's not like
considering the first two words are "Hey girl,"
it's not like Black Tom, where this is clearly written by someone who of color and clearly has had these experiences.
And the main character is really is obviously a black character. Like there's only so much perspective we get from this. So it's clearly the only concrete things we have is this person is clearly female.
Mm-hmm. I think if you're used to hearing different types of speech, like way people talk casually, you could infer that, oh, this is a black woman speaking.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe because I am a person of color, it stands out to me a little bit more, especially when she's like, oh, the blonde at work, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not,
okay, that's
I mean, just really, you could infer it. It's also casual enough, and just if you weren't used to the way certain people speak or the way people speak more casually amongst each other, you just assume it's anybody. And with this story particularly, though, like that's just, I think we're just kind of nitpicking in terms if we're gonna analyze the dialogue in that sense, because it's general enough that this could be any woman talking to their friend.
Mm-hmm.
Let's I feel like we're just pulling at whatever loose string we can at this point.
Yeah,
because we're trying to pad the episode. I'm sorry.
I think the tricky part is it is a short story, and it's a very short story.
This is probably the shortest one we've read.
Yeah. I think for the future, I think we'll try to do a bit more longer texts.
Yeah. This month though, we were like, you know what? Shit's kind of hard. We also got some things like that are dragging us down. Let's do an easy read, do an easy episode, something quick and easy for Kayla to edit.
Yay!
Because we're really going to dive into the next one, right?
Yes. Okay, before we introduce that, do we have any final thoughts?
I like this story.
I do also like the story. I am curious. I'm to read more.
Yeah, after reading this, I want to see more of Jemisin's work. Like honestly, this is really cool.
Yeah, maybe not for the podcast, but
no, on my own
casual
time, for
reading.
Sure.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because she leans more towards sci-fi and fantasy. If she does write horror, I haven't. I feel like people will say, yeah, it's sort of horror.
We might have to give it a cursory look first before we consider it for the podcast.
Yeah,
I don't regret having read this for the podcast.
Yeah, I don't regret it though.
So our next read, which I'm very excited for. Yes, I've already read it, but I am more than willing to read again because this is probably my favorite read from this year, and I really want to discuss this book with these guys. So our next story is Mexican Gothic by Silvia Morena Garcia. This is probably the newest book we've ever read. It just came out July
Oh,
of
really?
this year. Yeah.
Wow.
And again, I love this book. I am totally down to reread it, and I'm so excited to talk about it.
Pace yourself. We will get there. I promise.
Anyway, any plugs or?
So we just finished round 1 of Creative Horror's Boo Olympics. We had a cooking contest. There is a video on YouTube on the Creative Horror YouTube page, so you can watch us all attempting to cook. That was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
congratulations to the best fiends.
Yep.
Thank you on Alan's behalf. Thank you, and myself. I'm also the other half of that.
No, you absolutely deserved it. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh yeah, Alan and Say totally had this in the bag.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we're out of the group. We are the foodies for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So the next round of the Boo Olympics, starting now already, is a costume contest, and it is open for everyone. So we will be competing amongst ourselves within the Creative Horror team, but we are also encouraging all of our listeners to join in. The deadline isn't until October 25th. The rules are on the creators blog over at creativehorror.com. So everyone can compete, and it's just an excuse to make a cool costume and, fucking celebrate Halloween, because what else are we going to do? So I'm very excited about that. And Best Fiends are going to win again. And
Shadow Monarchy begs to differ, but we'll see.
I'm actually expecting great things from the Red Plague, which is made up of my fellow Witching Hour co-host, Henry and Ravel, because Henry is a cosplayer. Henry and their significant other have done so many amazing cosplays.
Oh yeah, I've seen their Instagram or his Instagram, and wow.
Yeah.
So I think they have the best shot at this one. If you guys enjoyed this, please listen to other podcasts on the Creative Horror Network, like Trick or Track or Undercooked Analysis, and also with October just around the corner, there's going to be a new Midnight Marinara episode, which
we're raising it from the dead as we try to do every year. Now that the show has kind of reached its like semi-logical conclusion a couple of years ago, we want to at least do at the very least one new episode every year. And October 30th, which will mark Midnight Marinara's 7th anniversary, there will be a brand new episode.
And this is one I wrote, so go easy on me. No, I'm kidding.
It's a good one. It's a good one. We're only on the first draft currently, and it's a good one.
As well as old episodes of The Witching Hour. But Sadie, you mentioned that you're bringing The Witching Hour back.
I have been trying for the last 2 months to bring back The Witching Hour, but different things keep getting in the way. Something else has just come up that is very concerning. I can't say anything about it right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring back The Witching Hour the way that I want it to. And if I am missing this element, I don't want to bring it back. So that's up in the air. But good thoughts. Staying positive. I am posting older episodes up onto the YouTube. The entire catalog is up on the Creative Horror website. We do have a segment, special type of episode called Good Morning, that I think we will at least continue the Good Morning sessions. And but what was The Witching Hour and what I had planned for it is on hold for now.
Okay.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
So We'll blow our candle because I think I can see the light of our train approaching.
It's hesitating in the tunnel, though. I think it's a little bit nervous. Well, come on. Let's go.
Good evening, intrepid listeners. This is the Pasta Shade, the host of Midnight Marinara, and this podcast is part of CreativeHorror.com, a network of podcasts and creators working together to build a constructive community of horror fans. For more content like this, visit us at CreativeHorror.com.